What's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane podcast, episode number 46 today, in what might be the shortest podcast we ever do. I really think it will be because, well, the Russian Grand Prix. What an absolute stunner of a race that was. Valtteri Bottas has won the Russian Grand Prix. His first win in Formula One. He's proved me wrong. I think he proved you wrong. He proved most of us wrong, I feel, on the podcast at least. Yeah. I, for one, definitely remember I categorically said I didn't even think he would win this season. So, fair play. I put my hands up, literally. Fair play. He's done it today, and he's proved he didn't crack under pressure, didn't bottle it, as many people were suggesting on Twitter. And, so that's this week's podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
To be fair, we haven't got much more to speak about on top of that. But, we were mentioning it when... what race was it where there wasn't a period where there was a period where
it was Australia. It was Australia.
And we thought that would be kind of like the last of it. And obviously I brought that up during the podcast and on Twitter, and it got quite a big reaction thinking, oh my God, how can they go 20 laps without an overtake? Try an entire race without any overtake. Okay, 51 laps without an overtake.
There wasn't a single on-track overtake since lap one.
When we say this, we mean legitimate overtake. We don't mean Ricciardo falling for the field. We don't mean Stroll spinning.
None of that. We mean
pit stops.
An actual overtake where a car just powers past someone through a corner on a straight. It was... It literally ended lap one. Like, if you look at the charts, I think that was another thing we did at Australia. We looked at, like, the line charts where you can see the position counters. And at the time, Australia was pretty shocking when Cal brought it up then. The Russian one is even more shocking.
Flat.
It's literally all flat lines. The only change is when you can clearly see when groups of drivers have made pit stops together to cover off each other. Wow, what a classic.
We can
classic
probably
race.
talk about our rant about the actual circuit probably at the end of the podcast, but we'll go through. To be fair, we can only really speak about lap one because that's where most of the action was, and maybe towards the end of the Grand Prix. But and then again, the major thing off the start was kind of what was expected of the fact that the second row have basically got the advantage at Sochi, whereas even if that's coming off the back of qualifying, really good solid front row lockout from Ferrari, first time since Magny-Cours 2008. That's almost a decade ago. And then it gets completely undone by the incredibly long straight down towards turn 2, which is quite a unique feature. You don't see that on many circuits, but it just kind of undo all of the work that the driver's done to get pole position.
Yeah, I mean, Bottas just got a really great getaway. Vettel bogged down. Yeah, Raikkonen had a mediocre start as well. Hamilton, to be fair to him, for all what happened to his race, he actually had a good start, but then just went very cautious into, I'm going to keep on saying turn 1, but it's turn 2. Into turn 2, we're very cautious. It was kind of odd. I was watching the Channel 4 coverage, and DC said it was quite odd to kind of see for the first time Hamilton, for a while, has had to actually think about cars in front of him, had to go a bit cautious into turn 2. Bottas, like Cal said, just that long straight, able to get past. Vettel tried to maybe suss something into turn 2, didn't work, and then from then on, really, it was that. Bottas first, Vettel second, Raikkonen third, Hamilton fourth. Hamilton just dropped off so much with tyre issues. Then he kind of stayed in traffic for too long in the first stint, which is a little bit stupid of Mercedes because he lost even more time. And then I think he may have just kind of thought in his head, there's no way I'm catching them, so just turn off, relax, just go around and finish in fourth. Raikkonen had one moment in this race, I feel, which was like the confusing radio moment, which is quite funny, where he thought Bottas had somehow got ahead of him, and he thought initially Bottas was behind him, and then his engineer reminded him, that's not Hamilton, that's Bottas. He was leading the race, remember, Kimi? He's like, oh yeah, I forgot, sorry.
But one thing I would like to bring up is the sheer talent and capability that Raikkonen, Hamilton and Ricciardo at the start of that race when they went 3 wide through the kink at turn 1, and you don't really think of it as much of a corner, and you wouldn't think it'd be that complicated, but because they're at different speeds, different amounts of tow, different amounts of deployment from the ERS, you look at it and you go, Jesus Christ, that was very close. And then Verstappen was going to try and make it 4 wide going down towards turn 2. But incredible that, because I think Hamilton, if you looked on Hamilton's onboard, he was slowly starting to drift towards Raikkonen. And they went, oh God, Raikkonen's there. And he slowly went the other way. And they went, oh God, Ricciardo's there. So he was kind of pinched in the middle. But I think Hamilton's, in terms of starts, like, Vettel was just a decent start, but he couldn't do much about it, which he said in the post-race interviews, as he just said, you can't do much about that. Fair play to Bottas for actually positioning his car in the right place to defend into turn 2, because obviously he is ahead, but it doesn't mean he's guaranteed. We've seen Rosberg a couple of years ago double lock up into turn 2.
Yeah, it's a tricky corner.
And it is interesting from Hamilton because it was quite an early lift off. He lifted off quite early but I think everyone was very cautious, apart from 2 drivers, which we'll probably speak about in a minute. Everyone was reasonably cautious because last year we saw loads of people cut and go wide at turn 2 and through the kink before 3. But there was only 2 drivers that went into each other, and then there was 2 more drivers that cut the corner, which I think it was Magnussen and Van Dorn, that both got 5-second penalties. So I think they were a lot more strict this year with
that area
how they cut the corner and everything. But do you want to talk about the incident? What's on the turn 2 topic?
So Palmer and Grosjean, it looked a bit of a funny one. Different angles make it look like different kind of faults, but ultimately I think we can probably say it was probably... I don't even know at this point.
You don't know.
I can't even call it, because like Grosjean goes down the inside. He's got all right to, but then the corner's already tightening up. I feel like the turn 2 is kind of weird because it comes like diagonally at you, almost like in terms of the side of the track, like the white line and where the apex actually starts to form. So initially I'm thinking Grosjean, when I'm looking at back at the replays, Grosjean's he's got all right to be there. Then Palmer starts turning and then it's getting a little bit hazy, and then we see Grosjean tap Palmer. So that's sort of, I feel that's kind of 50-50 maybe towards Palmer's fault. And then a kind of odd thing where Palmer just looks like he completely loses all control in a very slow speed nature. And then that's all his fault because then he just slams into Grosjean in that second phase.
It's not the first time we've seen like a flying car at the start. I think last year we saw a manner, I think it was Haryanto who took off on a clip in the back of Gutierrez, I think, or I think it was Hulkenberg last year. It's not the first time we've seen a slow speed incident where a car's taken off, and you get them really good pictures of a car just levitating, which obviously Twitter loves, especially when the race is pretty dull. But I don't know, the incident was just, you kind of think, oh, Grosjean, why do you have to put your nose there? You don't have to put your nose there.
You could have been more cautious, that's for sure.
Yeah, but then you're like, Palmer, surely could he have given him a bit more room? I mean,
we know the mirrors.
It was a racing incident.
We know the mirrors in F1, so there's also that. And ultimately, I think racing incident. I mean, both of them were there wasn't one who gained an advantage from that crash, so it kind of like karma basically sorted them both out almost.
It was funny afterwards though when they both looked at each other and they was just like,
I don't know.
What was that?
I don't know, mate.
What the hell was that?
What were you doing? Yeah. I don't know. And then afterwards, delightful piece of driving and a great radio afterwards of Lance Stroll spinning himself on a curb. There was a car on the left of him, and the Renault, I think it was a Renault, I think it was Hulkenberg.
It's Hulkenberg, yeah.
Yeah, and he comes across a little bit towards the apex, but then he can clearly see there's a car there on the inside. So, like you would, you kind of leave some room there so they can go side by side. But Lance, like the kind of timid little deer he is, like he was in Australia, sort of flinches right towards the curb a bit too much and didn't kind of predict Hulkenberg would give him the room. And he got on the curbing with his right wheel and then just span it. And it was just simple as that. And then he goes, the Renault forced him towards the curb. And then
was just a massive excuse.
And then it was, the curb span me.
Yeah, I think that was just a bit of an embarrassment, to be honest. It was kind of similar to Bottas' spin in China. But at first I thought it was because they threw the safety car out. And I thought Stroll arrived on the scene a little bit too early, and he was like, "Oh!" And then he hit the brakes so hard, obviously the rear end span, but obviously not. It just looked like one of them ones. He's still looking quite tense at the wheel, but still fair play to him because he actually finished, but albeit backwards at one point.
Yeah.
But
still finished, just about.
Apart from that, also, I think me and you, we brought this up after I think at China when the restart and the cars were very.
Oh, yeah.
Spread out.
Yeah, well, this time it worked fine.
Well, I don't know, because you look at it again and the pack still wasn't closed up.
I mean, Bottas chose very early to go. I feel like he bolted at not the last corner, not even the second last, the third last, the chicane. Out of the chicane, that's when he decided to bolt, which is fine by him that he bolted then. It was clear because then Sebastian started to chase him. Yeah, the pack was quite a little bit spread, but I feel like it wasn't like China where I'm still to this day like confused that even no one in the paddock or the reporters has still brought it up, because it was still a very weird safety car release where it just looked like they ended a virtual safety car, not a real safety car period.
Very strange. Yeah. I just noticed that and I was like,
yeah, fair enough.
Where are the days where they used to have like I think Button did it once in China where he backed the field up that much that people were going on the grass. Like, where are the days when that happened? You don't see that anymore.
Safety car, that was pretty much then where Bottas kind of started to solidify what was going to be a very defining moment for his career, because he got a really great exit, extended the lead to 1.2 seconds within the first lap, and then just kept on extending it. Then it was kind of basically literally a procession for the entire grid, apart from pit stops. And then towards the end, it was Vettel chasing down Bottas. We thought it was getting quite tense. Vettel was within 1.1, then went to 1.9 with some traffic, back to 1.1, had DRS in the closing moments. Then on the last lap of the race, where potentially there's still quite a lot of work for Sebastian to do, so let's calm down, Ferrari fans. There was a lot of work for him to do to actually make that pass. I feel like a lot of people are quickly
even within DRS.
Yeah, people are going to quickly go to what I'm about to say, which was he got held up by Massa in turn 3 a lot more than he needed to. And at the time, even I said it on Twitter, you know, quoting Boris Johnson, freaking muggle-womp, or whatever you want to say it. Just Massa, I don't know why he just got in the way. It's like, you're not even racing anyone ahead of you, really. He was half catching Hülkenberg, but not really. So I don't know why he needed to get in the way. But saying that, there was a lot of work for Vettel to still do, because we saw in the previous lap, Vettel still wasn't catching enough with DRS. And throughout the entire race, everyone down that grid order, DRS wasn't enough. And even then, they weren't even getting in DRS.
Well, it's not like DRS wasn't enough. They couldn't get within DRS.
The gaps were like 3 seconds. But even when there was DRS, you could see Vettel wasn't really closing enough. And Sector 3 was the best sector for Ferrari, but it was always just too tight to call there. So,
the straight line speed of the Mercedes was too quick.
You give them 10 laps more, maybe. But I think as much as it was annoying to see Massa get in Vettel's way, I think what it just did for us, I think, was just take away some last minute kind of anxiety and kind of like, oh, what's going to happen. But honestly, I think Bottas, he looked cool out there. Cool as a usual Finn, you would like to think. And he's held it through for his first win, as I said before at the very beginning. Fair play, proved me wrong.
Because did you see the vibration that he had with that flat spot?
Yeah,
I thought at first the vibrations was from him picking up rubber, because he was going quite fast whilst picking up rubber. But then I was looking, I was like, that can't be just rubber. And they were saying that was a vibration from the lockup. So he did that maybe, 10 laps from the end? And then with
quite far back,
four-time world champion closing you down. Absolutely fair play to him. And I think someone tweeted us, who obviously when anyone ever gets something wrong, people like to rub it in their face, but hey-ho.
Go back to the previous podcast.
Yeah, when we said, we said
play.
That we wouldn't expect Bottas to get a win maybe this season. I was a little bit more optimistic. I said maybe Baku, but literally we got proved wrong pretty much instantly.
In the fourth race.
It's still huge question marks over Lewis's side of the garage, because he's had a he just had a weekend.
Absolutely atrocious. In quali, he was like, that wasn't my usual self. So he's got some homework to do to kind of see what he was doing wrong, to not even just to Ferrari, just to his teammate. I mean, that's the best kind of yardstick. His teammates won the race and he's 16 seconds back. So, and it's not all down to just Mercedes traffic strategy, because before the traffic, Lewis was still already like 8 seconds back. So he has some homework to do there. But I think that's kind of exciting, I feel, because Hamilton, Rosberg, he had the fight with him for the 3 years, but really, there hasn't been a kind of, I'm a complete underdog right now, in terms of I've got my teammate beating me, and I've got 2 Ferrari guys who are completely faster than me the entire weekend.
It was very strange how much time he lost during that pit stop. Like, I was saying to myself, why didn't they pit him just a lap earlier? Because it just seemed a bit pointless keeping them out, because the deltas between the tyres, I think someone on Channel 4 brought it up, the deltas weren't big enough, and we've spoke about this on the podcast. There's no point in us repeating it, but they do need to make slightly bigger gaps between the tyres, because especially at Russia, which we've said again that we're going to expect a one-stop, but he lost 8 seconds in the pit stop somehow, and he didn't have a slow stop. The pace was just genuine. Okay, I know I've just said the tyre deltas are off, but I think that's purely down to just the dirty air, and it does show how much dirty air does affect, especially when it comes into pit stops, because the pit stops really do outline the sheer difference and the sheer effect that other cars can have on others. Because you look at it and you think, You saw Vettel complaining earlier on in the race when he said there was a car in front of him, and he was like, "Oh, come on, blue flag." It's like you're 2.5 seconds behind him, and you complain about blue flags. That shows, like, especially around maybe I don't know whether it's street circuit specific, but I think it's just any circuit. 2.5 seconds. That needs to be sorted out if they're being affected from that far back. Like, I don't know I don't know how, but that needs to be rectified pretty soon.
It's gonna be it's a tough one that you can't. I don't think that will get. You say soon. I don't think it's gonna be a quick fix, unfortunately for us. I think it's gonna be.
We want it to be soon, but the FIA will just.
It's gonna be a long-term thing to kind of fix that. I think that's fundamental sort of thing, but that's what gets us onto the whole. Just the race this weekend. One, the tyres, I feel like they always do this when it's newer circuits. They fail to see they need to bring so much softer tyres, and they almost need like almost need 3 levels softer
than
the default tyres for new circuits where the tarmac's very new and it's not rubbered in, so it's not very abrasive and everything like that. And that's also another thing, just the circuit itself. The layout's not very, appealing for good racing. And then also the surface itself is just so new and squeaky clean. There's not much racing that goes on there, obviously, throughout the year. So it just always stays quite green. And, we saw that in qualifying, them sliding around the last corner to get pole position in second and third place. I think it's unfortunate. I think the track has a contract till 2025, does it not, or something? It has a contract for quite long. I don't know what the exact year is. Don't quote me on it.
But I think we spoke about it.
It's much longer than the 3 years we would like, maybe, like minimum.
Well, right. Before we can probably just sweep up the rest of the grid in a heartbeat, really. But I think the main topic is, because a lot of people were mentioning, like, obviously there is the debate about dirty air, but I think Russia kind of outlines there's a step more, because we've just come off the back of Bahrain and China, which were, on the face of it, really decent Grand Prix compared to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So, and obviously people have been arguing with you about Melbourne, and we've already spoke about it on the podcast. So
well, Russia came along. Russia came a lot like Australia. Like Russia came along, was like, "Oh, you're touted as the worst Grand Prix so far this season. Hold my beer. Here we go. I'll show you a bad Grand Prix."
The thing is, it's obviously we need to sort out the events from the actual races itself, but genuinely, like, Russia, I think, is the worst circuit. I honestly think we're going to get a better, because just look at Baku. You've got to expect some overtaking around Baku at some point, just because of them long straight. Well, hopefully. I'm gonna hold my breath and hopefully say that. But me and I have very briefly
Baku last year
podcast
was better than this year's Russian Grand Prix.
Definitely.
So there's hope.
This is definitely probably one of the worst race. This is probably the worst race in decades. Definitely. I've never experienced a race with no overtakes. But I think before they make new circuits, because obviously there have been rumours about New York coming to the calendar, they need to do a little bit more research and development, and put a little bit more science into actually developing circuits, because these new circuits aren't. Well, if Russia's Russia isn't the newest. Baku's the newest, but Russia's the second newest. And you look at it and you go, there's an outlining problem, because a lot of people brought up the fact that the gap between the back straight, which is it's not even a straight in essence, it's a curve, so you can't get the most amount of slipstream through that. But then you've got six slow speed corners between the one DRS zone and another DRS zone. I mean, like, what a boring sector on the face of it. But then you look, how are cars supposed to keep close when the aero is very limited anyway, because there isn't that much air passing over the car during a low-speed corner. Mechanically, the tyres, there's no delta between the tyres. There's literally no way a driver can stay close to a car through that final sector. And I'm not sure where the boffins, Herman Tilke, decided, we need a really slow final sector, because that's what Formula 1 needs, because everyone loves a car going around at 60 miles an hour. And I'm not sure what you think about it, Arav, but I feel like something needs to be changed.
Russia just doesn't have a lot of character. It just doesn't have a lot of memorable corners apart from turn 3, really. That's a great corner, and then you just go into a series of straights and kinks and, like, 90-degree turns. So Yeah, and then also I feel like also undulation's a big thing in circuits.
Definitely.
A good amount of undulation is good because it just means there's that bit of difference of you're not going all samey like a car park, all flat. You need some hill. I know Russia is built in the Olympic Park, so unfortunately they have to go with what they're given. But that's also another thing. When we're going to these new places, you know, like New York will, I don't know where they're planning to do it, because the last time a New York Grand Prix was planned, it wasn't actually technically New York, it was New Jersey, but that, you know, they call it New York Grand Prix because obviously that's the big kind of name. But if you go there, I'm sure a lot of New Jerseyans and New Yorkers will bang head about what it really is. But when they planned that one, you could see some of the turns were kind of nice, like nice swooping corners, some actual, you know, interesting details. But then if you think like to Russia, where it's like they've had to work around certain monuments, obviously they have like the different buildings from the Olympic Park. And it's just unfortunate. Like I feel like when they go to these new venues, they almost have to not just be like, let's go to this country in this area right now. Let's scour the country for the best area where we can make this circuit.
It's like they've just crammed it in.
Yeah, crammed it in.
And I know that they're boasting this whole park of, oh yeah, we're going to have the World Cup soon, because I think the World Cup's going to be literally hosted just down the road. We've got all this massive Winter Olympic Park. We've got a Formula One circuit. Not being funny, you can't boast about the Formula One circuit because it's shite. Let's be honest. On the face of it, it's shit. And I think that they've just tried to cram it in. Herman Tilke needs to get rid of this philosophy about having 2 straights in every single circuit, because it doesn't matter if you've got 2 straights if they're separated by the shittest sectors in the world. And to be fair, to rectify what you said, Aarava, about undulation, look at Silverstone, no undulation at all, and it does work. But you've got to have some sort of decent corners. You need to have some character.
I mean, say no undulation. It's got a slight undulation. It's got a slight from like
slightly
from the main straight. It climbs up a little bit. Then it's kind of all flat until we get towards like up towards Stowe, and it kind of climbs a little bit and then drops back down slowly towards the pit straight. But yeah, like that's fairly like there's no huge hills
it's
like
not
USA.
Like Kota. Yeah, it's not
like
like
USA or like Spa, and it still does okay. And even like I'm trying to think of examples of just like where even like back to the failed circuit back at India, that main back straight. Even then, the little just dip, it just kind of it was at least something. So it's like, oh, it's not just flat.
There's just like certain philosophies behind corners. I remember that corner going onto the back straight at India. One of the easiest corners I think I've ever been around, because it was just so slow. I think Herman Tilke just needs to get rid of the slow speed corners. I genuinely think, because this is the thing when it goes to off camber corners needs to go as well.
Off camber corners,
because it's not really working. But this is the thing, before we go to like any new places like New York, whenever someone brings up a street circuit, I'm just thinking, oh God, please make it be somewhat decent. Because...
See, I think New York, and it's like, unfortunately, planning permissions come into it. And I could think of, because I've been to New York once, and I sort of remember the roads. And there's some nice places where the road, like the intersections in New York, are big enough where they could create a curved turn that's actually nice and not a 90-degree turn. But obviously, they would never get planning permission to do a New York Grand Prix actually in the city of New York. So it will be somewhere in New Jersey, probably, like overlooking New York, like across the the waters. The old one they kind of provided just had some Russia-style kinks of like 90 degrees, like an L-shaped corner to take the big L that weekend for F1. Had some curves to it. But yeah, like you said, they need to just sort of like dig into it and kind of make sure there's no major off-camber corners. Try and keep the circuit flowing and like one that it's not sort of stop-start, because that just kills off any sort of like... Yeah, just momentum for the drivers to catch or anything like that. Because even when Vettel was catching Bottas today, you didn't really feel that. You know, although it was a little bit tense, it wasn't really like...
Yeah, people on Twitter like, oh my God, how tense. I was literally just sat on my phone in my bed over there. I was just literally scrolling up, oh, he's a second behind.
Oh, that was me. This entire Grand Prix after lap 1 was just this. Yep.
I genuinely...
Oh, yeah, I'm going to tweet that GIF out. Oh, yeah. No,
I genuinely didn't know what to do. But if we wrap up the rest of the...
Let me wrap it up quickly. Shall we? Bottas, first place. Vettel, second. Raikkonen, third. Hamilton, fourth. We all talk about them. Verstappen, fifth. Very boring race. Ricciardo, shame for him, brake issues. Don't worry. The luck will come soon, Danny Rick. Don't worry. Perez, sixth. Ocon, seventh. Great for Ocon to get some good points. He was saying he wanted more than 1 point this weekend. Good stuff. And for Force India, once again, double points ahead of Williams as well this weekend. Brilliant stuff for them. They're overperforming massively. Hulkenberg, 8th place, another solid points position. Interesting strategy. Went very long in the first stint. Was actually doing okay lap times. Then dropped off and then just naturally tried to catch Ocon. But still, Renault still have, it's their kind of first proper season where they've built their own car. So they still have a long way to go, but decent enough. Massa, slow puncher. Very unfortunate for Williams because also Stroll was down the order in 11th place after his idiotic spin. So unfortunate for Williams to lose a whole load of points because he was running in 6th behind Verstappen, unfortunately for him. So 9th place. Carlos Sainz 10th, just about. Good for Sainz because both Toro Rossos weren't looking particularly strong out there this entire race weekend. Very boring race for Kvyat in 12th place. Kind of a shame for Russian fans that they saw his driver not basically doing anything the entire Grand Prix. Magnussen 13th, Van Dorn 14th, 15th Marcus Ericsson, which is surprising to finish ahead of Verlaine. I'm not too sure if Verlaine had an issue. It was literally that boring that no one ever even talked about any of those guys, so I don't know. But Verlaine finished behind Ericsson, and then obviously we saw the crash, Ricciardo, and then the one thing we haven't talked about is yet again Alonso didn't even start the race this time, parked up on the formation lap that delayed it for another formation lap. Honda, McLaren, get your shit together. That has been the podcast. That's episode 46. Callum, do you have any final words before I wrap this up?
Oh, just what's the next race? Spain. Oh, roll on Spain. Just roll on Spain.
Hopefully, the place where they tested these cars, and Massa and people were saying it's surprising that Bahrain did not see the same jump in time difference that it was in Spain. Hopefully, we'll see quite an exciting one right there because Spain was obviously quite a huge time leap for the lap time. So hopefully that will be quite exciting to just see the cars alone in quali just go around that track in anger. For the first time, obviously they would have been so much faster now compared to when they did testing
Turn 3, Turn 9.
Yeah, just so many. There's going to be some good corners there just to watch in quali. But that's been it. Podcast 46. Hope you did enjoy it anyway. If you can, give a like, even though the Grand Prix is quite boring. That would be much appreciated. If you're new around here, subscribe to this channel for the podcast. Check us both out on Twitter. Links in the description as well to Callum's channel. We'll see you guys next time for, is it a midweek podcast? I think it is.
So.
I think so. So we'll wrap up some news. Hopefully there will be some news and the entire paddock has not died of boredom after the Russian Grand Prix. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.